She cheated and declared, "I don't owe you a thing, but you won't believe what happened next." The storm had struck with the kind of fury only whispered about in nightmares. The rain lashed down, heavy and relentless, as if the heavens themselves were weeping for what was about to unfold. It was on this fateful night that Claire Avery stood in the crowded bar, heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. A sly grin curled on her lips, but her eyes betrayed a whirlwind of secrets. Everyone felt it, that electric tension in the air. They whispered and glanced, stepping back as Claire raised her voice above the din, "I don't owe you a thing." The words sliced through the chatter like a hot knife through butter. But what had brought her to this moment, facing a sea of faces, the room frozen in shock? She had been the perfect girlfriend, loyal, loving, and all smiles. Yet, in the blink of an eye, she had turned the tables. The people around couldn't peel their eyes away, mouths agape, caught in the shocking spectacle. Claire, with her fiery auburn hair damp and wild, had unveiled a hidden side. They could almost taste the accusation on the air, a bitter tang, laced with disbelief. It was like silent thunder rolling through the night. Then there was Jason, her once devoted boyfriend, standing across the bar. His face, flushed with embarrassment and rage, twisted painfully each time he heard her words echo back to him. It was the type of betrayal that coursed through him, sharp and bitter, like a jagged rock lodged in his throat. He thought they had it all, the perfect relationship, colorful dreams, shared futures until now. Whispers erupted around them in jagged bursts, pieces of conversation that slashed through the tension. "Did you see that? No way she did that. What is going to happen next?" The uncertainty hung there, thick and heavy. Even the bartender paused mid-pour, eyes darting between Claire and Jason, uncertain whether to intervene or let the drama unfold. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." In the heat of the moment, a hush fell over the crowd as she pushed back against Jason's attempts to reason with her. "You don't get to control me anymore," Claire shouted, her voice mixed with defiance and pain. The wave of emotions washing over the room was almost tangible: fear for Jason, intrigue for Claire. With every word spoken, the stakes kept rising. This wasn't just a breakup, it was a declaration of war. Before anyone could process it all, Claire turned to leave, and the tension snapped. Could she really walk away with everything so shattered? And just as the door swung behind her, a deafening crash echoed through the bar. An old mirror cracked, shards cascading like fallen stars. Everyone gasped, uncertainty hanging thickly in the air. What would she do next? What secrets lay behind that abrupt exit? The crowd leaned in closer, collectively drawn into the void she left behind, each heartbeat quickening, desperate to discover what lay ahead. The rain continued to pummel the streets outside as Claire stormed into the night, heart racing, mind swirling. She had expected chaos, but the outer world was eerily calm. The battered streets reflected the dim glow of streetlights, shimmering like broken glass. Claire's steps were quick, urgent, fueled by adrenaline. Behind her, the bar was a cacophony of whispers and gasps, but she didn't look back. "What have I done?" she muttered to herself, her breath visible in the chilly air. Each step carried a weight, a bizarre mix of liberation and dread. The taste of freedom was there, sweet yet tinged with regret. Was she really ready to leave everything behind? Every decision had led to this moment, but now it felt surreal. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. It was Ethan, her childhood friend. His eyes were wide with surprise, and for a moment she thought she saw pity mingled with concern. "Claire!" he called, his voice strained. "What just happened back there?" Stay out of this, Ethan, she snapped, shoving past him. But he didn't budge. Not until you explain. She paused, the tension in the air wrapping around her like a vice. Why does everyone think they can just confront me tonight? I don't owe anyone explanations. But you're upset. You can't just run away while this is happening, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. No one understands, she fired back, hands trembling with unresolved emotion. You think you know me, but you don't know anything. He stepped closer, fighting that stormy gaze. I know Jason loved you. I know he cared. You didn't have to rip him apart like that. A loud crash shattered the night air again, not from the bar this time, but nearby where a trash can had toppled over in the wind. Claire flinched but didn't take her eyes off Ethan. How can you say that when I'm the one who has been hurt? The words poured out like a dam breaking. You think I owe anything to him? To anyone? Just then, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. The screen lit up with Jason's name, shattering the fragile atmosphere. Claire's mind raced, each thought punctured by the beat of her heart. Did she want to talk to him? What could he possibly say after everything? But the urge overcame her, she answered, trembling. What? Claire. His voice was shaky, raw with emotion. Where are you? I'm fine. Just leave me alone. Please. You don't understand. I need to see you, he pleaded, and panic coursed through her veins, the weight of the moment settled heavily. Did she really want to expose the real reason for her fury? Did she even know what she wanted anymore? The siren of doubt whirred in her mind, tangled with thoughts of reconciliation and anger. Are you at the bar? He pressed. Just, come back, okay? We can talk this out. The wind howled, a bitter reminder of the storm that lingered above. Claire glanced back at the bar. Inside, people were staring, speculating, and whispering. Her heart raced, thoughts colliding. Why? She breathed, why would I want to do that? And as Jason prepared to plead for her return, a shadow fell across the alley where they stood, looming larger than life. A figure moved closer, and Claire's breath hitched. It wasn't Ethan. It wasn't Jason. Who was it? Claire. The voice sent chills down her spine. In that moment of uncertainty, everything twisted. Would she face the ghosts of her past, or run into the unknown? And why did she suddenly feel like she was being watched, each second stretched thin, stretching tight like a wire ready to snap? What secrets did this night still hold? What choice would she make when the time came? The figure stepped forward, the dim light reflecting off familiar features. It was Dylan, someone Claire thought she would never see again. His presence ignited a firestorm of emotions, anger, betrayal, nostalgia. The last time they parted, it was under heavy, charged circumstances. Dylan, what are you doing here? Her voice trembled, mixing disbelief with a hint of something more vulnerable. I was in town and I heard, he said, his words cautious, as if afraid to step too close to the edge. What do you mean, you heard? Claire felt the depth of her heartbeat reverberate in her ears, each thump threatening to drown out reason. Who told you? Does it matter? He shot back, frustration breaking through the almost eerie calm. I came here because I thought you might need someone who knows you and isn't afraid to face whatever this is. Need someone? She laughed, a bitter sound. If anything, I need to be alone. I don't need you or anyone, then why are you out here, Claire? His voice hardened, cutting through her defenses. You're running away from everything, your feelings, this situation, me. Claire's breath hitched as she felt tears sting her eyes. In that moment, the vulnerability swelled, threatening to spill over. She thought being alone would provide strength. Instead, the weight pressed down harder, like gravity turning unforgiving. You don't understand. She shouted, feeling her anger rise again, mixed with sadness. You think I wanted this? That I wanted to turn my back on my life? Dylan stepped closer, his eyes digging through her layers like hot coals against dry wood. Then talk to me. Don't lash out. Let us figure this out together. You're running into darkness without knowing what's waiting for you. I know what's waiting for me. Pain. The word broke from her lips, heavy and raw. Jason does love me, but it hurts too much to even look at him right now. Not just Jason. You. What do you want? His eyes softened. It was a gentle question in the midst of chaos. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She felt hollow, trapped between two decisions like a lifeline slipping through her fingers. Behind her, the faint echoes of the bar muffled the tension outside, but it felt a world away. The rain picked up, icy droplets spattering against her skin, marking the borders of her reality. Claire, please, Dylan urged, and for a moment, she swayed between the past and the tumultuous now. Shadows danced all around them in the dim streetlight, the rain pooling at their feet like tears unshed. Tell me you want to fight for yourself, for something more than just running away. You don't have to shoulder this alone. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. Frantic and trembling, she glanced at the screen. It was another message from Jason, this time with a location pinned. Claire, just come back. Please. Panic clawed at her insides. What if she stepped back into the hallway of hard truths? Yet just as her thoughts started to complicate, she heard a siren pierce through the night. It echoed loudly through the valley of silence, urgent, demanding, unrelenting. Where is that coming from? Claire muttered, turning instinctively to check. Claire. Listen, but she was already moving, quickening her pace towards the sound that promised chaos, too caught up in her swirling tempest of uncertainty. Don't go. Dylan shouted, but she was too far. The siren screamed louder, a harbinger of something sinister, and with each step, the shadows seemed to shift, beckoning her towards darker choices. What lay ahead? Claire's heart raced as she recognized that confronting Jason might lead to more than just a fight. And in the distance, she could see flickering lights growing more intense. What fate awaited her as the scene unfolded? Would she step back into her life, or into a trap crafted by the storms surrounding her? The piercing sirens faded in and out, melding into the thick, suffocating air as Claire pushed forward, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. She barely registered the scattered raindrops soaking her clothes, the chilly fingers of water clinging to her skin. All that mattered was what lay ahead. The flickering lights grew nearer, painting the scene with an unsettling urgency. Her stomach twisted, anxiety coiled tight. What is happening? She murmured to herself, mind racing with scenarios, none of them good. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, the thrum of adrenaline urging her onwards into potential chaos. Just as she rounded the corner, the stark blue and red from police lights painted a surreal picture on the night. Forming a barricade outside a small diner, officers moved with practiced urgency. Anxiety morphed into dread, and Claire's breath hitched. Her phone buzzed again, Jason's name glaring up at her. She fought the instinct to look, afraid of what she might see. What the hell? Claire gasped as a commotion grew louder. A figure stumbled out of the diner, clutching their side, blood seeping through fingers. Panic erupted as people gathered, murmuring in disbelief. In her frantic search for clarity, Claire's gaze zeroed in on Jason, leaning against a squad car, an officer by his side. His face was pale and drawn, eyes darting around nervously. The sight of him stopped her cold, the storm in her heart colliding with a dread so deep it overshadowed everything else. Jason! She cried, feet moving without conscious thought. She pushed through the crowd, each body brushing against her a reminder of reality, but all she could focus on was him. Their eyes locked, a world of unspoken words passing between them. But then came a harsh voice from the officer beside him. "Ma'am, please step back." The warning sliced through Claire, interrupting the fragile connection they had built. "Is he hurt?" she shouted, panic rising. What happened? Jason stepped forward as the officer held him back. Claire, don't, but it was too late. She broke through, fear propelling her toward Jason, erasing all the walls she'd put up. She reached out, grasping his arm. What happened? Please, I need to know. His eyes darted to the ground, a darkness pooling there that sent alarms ringing through her. Someone got hurt, Claire. It was I didn't see it coming. What do you mean? Who? She desperately searched his gaze, looking for answers. But there was only confusion and grief. Before he could respond, animated screams erupted near the diner. A woman was crying out, her voice splintered with agony. He didn't deserve this. It was his time. Claire's stomach twisted. The atmosphere snapped taut with anxiety, and she turned back toward the chaos. The crowd murmured, shifting, as another figure emerged from the diner. Dylan, his face was grim, unmistakable tension squaring his jaw. He pushed through the gathering, eyes scanning the crowd looking for her. Claire! He shouted, breaking free of the chaos and accelerating towards her. We need to get out of here, it's not safe. Not safe? What do you mean? But even before she finished her question, she felt a shift in the air. Something was wrong. The tension crackled like static electricity. Jason's face paled further, watching Dylan approach with apprehension. Claire, don't listen to him. He doesn't get it. Dylan's expression turned sharp. This is bigger than both of you. There is something we need to figure out, and it's only just beginning. Caught between the two men who represented chapters of her life, Claire's heart raced. The flickering emergency lights, the sirens wailing, and that woman's cries melded into havoc surrounding her, swirling into an ungraspable reality. What do you mean, it's only just beginning? She whispered, fear coating her throat. With a sudden hush, the crowd fell still, all eyes were on her, as though they anticipated something big about to unfold in the darkness of the night. Little did she know that the true chaos was still lurking just out of sight, waiting for her to make her next move. What truth lay hidden in this storm? And would Claire be able to navigate the maze of emotions and danger surrounding her? Claire's heart raced as she scanned the faces around her, the crowd's collective breath held tight. It felt like the eye of a storm, only a beat before chaos erupted again. The tension hung heavily, thick enough to cut through. She turned her attention back to Jason and Dylan, who stood an arm's length away, both brimming with unspoken secrets. What is happening? She pressed, her voice laced with desperation. You both know something. Dylan stepped closer, forging a tether in that electric silence. Listen, Claire. There is something going on, something bigger than just the shooting. People are getting targeted, and it's getting worse. Targeted? Jason interjected, his face flushed with fear. You can't seriously believe stop. Claire's pulse raced, she couldn't handle the back and forth. Just tell me what you know. Dylan's eyes bore into hers, earnest and firm. There's a group involved. They're connected to the diner, to whoever got hurt. This isn't random. We're in the middle of something dark, Claire. Her thoughts spiraled as she pieced together fragments. A diner nestled in the heart of their town, a place where laughter and warmth once mingled. Now, it lay sullied by chaos. She turned, her vision searching for the wounded figure earlier, but the crowd concealed the person, enshrouded in a hazy veil of sirens and murmured conversations. Don't get drawn in, Jason insisted. You need to stay away from this. Stay away. Claire echoed incredulously. How can I stay away? This is my life. I have a right to know. Dylan intervened, his voice suddenly fierce. You're right, Claire, you deserve to know. But it's not safe. You're in danger just being here. A tremor cascaded down her spine at that revelation. Danger? What do you mean? The air seemed to pulse, alive with impending dread. Listen, Jason spoke low, urgency threading his words. We can't talk here. Let us find somewhere safer. I promise I'll explain everything on the way. Without waiting for her reply, he beckoned for her to follow. Reluctantly, Claire looked back at Dylan, searching his intense gaze for affirmation. He nodded, but something deeper lurked behind those eyes, a shadow that hinted he knew more than he was letting on. They maneuvered through the crowd, emerging just out of earshot of the commotion. She could still feel the thrum of voices, the murmurs climbing like wildfire, stoking the fear in her core. Once they were isolated enough, Jason turned, his expression frantic. Claire, you must trust me. I was getting closer to the truth before all this. I saw something that can't get out. What did you see? Her breath trembled, caught somewhere between excitement and abject terror. The calm was a thin film, ready to shatter at any moment. The man who got hurt, I think he was connected to something illegal. Jason stumbled, his eyes darting back toward the diner, as if the truth was lurking there, ready to pounce. What? Why didn't you tell anyone? Claire's heart sank. If Jason had known I didn't want you involved. He looked furious, yet terrified. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the ground beneath them, rattling Claire to her core. Glass shattered from a nearby storefront, raining down like storm debris. Panic exploded anew, sending her heart into overdrive. Run! Dylan shouted, grabbing her arm, urgency erupting through his voice as they sprinted away from the still rumbling chaos, leaving Jason behind. The world blurred around her, a cacophony of screams and chaos swirling like a tempest. Yet, through it all, Claire felt a flicker of something else, a determination that surged like fire in her chest. But what awaited her once the storm cleared? And who would survive this chaotic night? As they dove into the shadows, she could hear the faint echo of Jason's voice, lost in the mayhem. That single thought haunted her: what if this was only the beginning of a monstrous truth? They darted down a narrow alley, twisting and turning in a blur of confusion and desperation. Claire's heart thudded in her chest as the sounds of chaos receded, morphing into muffled cries behind them. Yet the overwhelming sense of danger hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating and relentless. Where are we going? Claire gasped, her breath rasping in her throat. Somewhere safe, Dylan urged, his grip on her arm unyielding. We need to figure this out. What about Jason? Her thoughts raced back to their friend, now lost in the unfolding nightmare. Had he escaped? Was he okay? The guilt gnawed at her, but there was no time for that. A few moments later, Dylan paused behind an old, rusted dumpster. He pushed aside a piece of cardboard, revealing a cramped space. In here, he instructed, his voice low and urgent. Claire crawled in, her skin brushing against the cold metal. It felt claustrophobic, oppressive, but she had no choice. Dylan squeezed in after her, the cramped quarters amplifying tension and anxiety. They sat in the darkness, each minute stretched into eternity and heavy with fear. The sirens began to fade, but the echoes of screams still rattled in her ears. We can't stay here long, Dylan whispered. Tell me everything, Claire insisted, her voice raw. Who is targeting us? Why? Dylan hesitated, his brow furrowed in thought. Remember the diner? I had stumbled onto something. There was a group involved in shady dealings. I think they're retaliating against anyone connected to them. Shady dealings? Claire repeated, her stomach churning. Like what? It could be anything from drugs to money laundering, to worse. I didn't have all the pieces, but what I found it wasn't right. And now? He trailed off, the implication of his words hanging heavy. Now it's all come crashing down, Claire finished for him, the gravity of the situation weighing like a stone. Dylan nodded. The man who got hurt. He saw something. Maybe he knew too much. Someone wanted to silence him. And now, they might come after us next. Claire's limbs turned cold with dread. What do we do? Just hide here? No. We need to expose them, Claire. We've got to find out what's really going on before it's too late, Dylan said, his voice ignited with determination. But we're in the middle of it, Dylan. What if we can't? Then we won't stand a chance, he replied, fear flickering in his eyes. They stepped into a dark web, and she could feel it tightening around them. Suddenly, Claire heard footsteps approaching quick, deliberate. Panic surged through her veins. Someone's coming. She held her breath, straining to listen. The footsteps paused just outside the alley. Claire exchanged quick glances with Dylan, their expression echoing the shared fear. Stay quiet, he mouthed, gripping her arm fiercely. The sound of a low voice filled the air, punctuated by the occasional harsh laugh. Claire couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was menacing, predatory. What do they want? She whispered, her heart pounding harder. Dylan leaned in closer. We can't let them find us. If they're looking for Jason, they'll have to find us first. The voices grew louder, the figures just outside their hiding spot now coming into focus. Claire's lungs felt tight as she forced herself to breathe. Then, a flash of light sliced through the gloom. A phone screen held up to the darkness. The faces she dreaded to see were right there, just feet away. What if they find us? Claire's voice was strained, barely a whisper. Dylan's expression hardened. They won't. Not if we stay quiet. But glancing at the shadows creeping closer, she felt the edges of her courage fray. What if they were next on the list? And what would come of it all when the darkness revealed its true face? Just then, a shout pierced the night, signaling chaos anew. They were running out of time. As uncertainty enveloped her, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Would they uncover the truth, or become another casualty in an escalating war? The light from the phone flickered, casting long shadows across the damp alleyway. Claire's heart raced with each wavering beam as the figures loomed closer. She could see 3 of them now, their faces hard and focused, like hounds on a scent. Dylan shifted beside her, his breath quick and shallow. We might need to make a run for it, he hissed, his voice barely a whisper under the thick layer of tension filling the cramped space. Where? Claire's mind swirled, panic clawing at her throat. We're trapped. Determination settled in Dylan's eyes. We can't wait for them to find us. We need to make a move while we still can. The men outside were laughing, a cruel sound that echoed in the darkness. I swear he was here. One of them shouted, his voice grating like gravel. He can't have just disappeared. What if Jason told them where we are? Claire's thoughts spiraled into darker territory. The idea made bile rise in her throat. What if he wanted to protect us but ended up putting us in danger? Enough, Claire. Dylan's whisper was sharp. We can't afford to think like that. Suddenly, the harsh laughter stopped. The lead figure leaned closer, scanning the shadows. Claire held her breath as she felt the icy grip of fear tighten around her chest. This was it. They would soon know they weren't alone. Come on, check over there. The man commanded, pointing toward the dumpster. Claire felt a surge of adrenaline. They had to act now. Go. Dylan urged, his voice strained but urgent. With little time to think, Claire crawled backward, adrenaline propelling her into a sprint. Dylan was hot on her heels. They burst out of the alley and into the street, night air hitting them like a punch. They darted across the main road, hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. Claire's legs screamed in protest, but she forced herself to run, the fear of being caught driving her forward. Head to the cafe. Dylan shouted, pointing toward a dimly lit building a few blocks down. It's always crowded. We'll blend in. Terror gnawed at her resolve. She wanted to look back, to see if they were being chased. But she couldn't take the chance. They could be right behind them, ready to pounce like wolves hunting prey. Just as they reached the cafe, Dylan grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her into the safety of the crowd. The faint smell of burnt coffee wafted through the air, a jarring contrast to the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As they pushed their way to the back, they ducked into a corner booth, trying to look inconspicuous. "Okay, we made it," Claire panted, her heart still racing. She cast a glance around, searching for familiar faces in the sea of strangers. Dylan leaned in closer, a storm of fear mixing with urgency in his eyes. "Now what? We can't just sit here. We need to find Jason." "He might already be gone," Claire breathed, despair creeping in. "What if they got him?" "That can't be true," Dylan said forcefully. "We have to keep hope. We need to gather information, find out what happened." Suddenly, the cafe door swung open, and the three men from the alley stepped inside. Time seemed to freeze around Claire. They scanned the room, eyes sharp and calculating. Panic surged through her once more, a tidal wave of fear crashing down. Dylan's eyes went wide as he noticed the men. "Stay low," he whispered, panic lacing his tone. But Claire's mind raced ahead, mapping out the danger. "When they leave," she started. "Claire, they might not leave," he interrupted sharply. A sly smile formed on one of the men's faces as they approached the counter, and Claire's blood ran cold. If they were looking for Jason, they might be looking for them too. They needed to act, and fast. Should they confront them, or escape while they still had a chance? The cafe became a pressure cooker, every second stretching and twisting with impending doom. Then, as the men gathered at the counter, one of them pulled out a piece of paper, scanning it intently. Claire's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the name written in bold letters at the top. It made her heart drop. They knew more than Claire and Dylan had anticipated. What they didn't know was how far she would go to protect Jason and the dangerous game that awaited them all. As the adrenaline flooded her senses, Claire swore she could see the web tightening around them, every thread pulling them deeper into the unknown. Would they manage to escape the dark forces closing in, or would the shadows consume them whole? The tension in the cafe hung thick, a living thing coiling around Claire and Dylan like a snake ready to strike. Claire shifted in the booth, stealing glances toward the men at the counter. Their laughter was gone, replaced by a grim focus that sent a shiver down her spine. "What do we do?" Dylan's voice barely made it above the buzz of conversation, but the urgency lit a fire beneath Claire's skin. "We can't let them see us," she whispered. Her heart raced at the thought of their eyes narrowing, their predatory instincts honed in. She leaned closer to Dylan, her breath hitching. "If they find us here." A nearby couple glanced at them, a frown creasing their foreheads. Claire forced a smile, but it felt like a mask, thin and strained. In that moment, she realized the cafe, once a sanctuary, felt more like a cage. One of the men, the tallest, with a jagged scar running down his cheek, turned his head, his gaze sweeping the room like a hawk searching for prey. The instinct to duck and hide bubbled instinctively inside her, but she held her ground, unwilling to show weakness. "Look at that paper," Claire said, nodding subtly toward the men. "What if they're tracking Jason? What if this was all part of something bigger?" Dylan frowned, frustration flashing across his face. "We can't panic. We need a plan. You know how this works. If they're after him, we can't let them get to him first." A loud crash made Claire jump. One of the men slammed his fist on the counter, causing the barista to flinch. The innocent buzz of conversation spiraled into hushed whispers, and Claire felt eyes drifting their way. "Look, we're outnumbered." Dylan gritted his teeth. "We could cause a scene, but it'll bring worse trouble. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it gets." The man with the scar nodded toward the exits, discussing something with his companions in low, conspiratorial murmurs. Every instinct in Claire screamed at her. Something big was about to happen. Suddenly, the cafe's door swung open, and in walked another man, taller, with an air of authority that crackled through the gathered patrons. Claire felt a rush of recognition. This was someone they had seen before, someone close to Jason. "Where is he?" the newcomer demanded, scanning the room with intensity. The atmosphere shifted, tension thickening as if everyone held their breath. "Who is that?" Claire asked, her panic growing. "He's looking for Jason too." "Stay calm," Dylan whispered sharply. "Don't draw attention." But how could she? The familiar figure was both a beacon of hope and a source of danger. Would he tip off the men? Or could he be their way out? The men from the alley caught sight of the newcomer, their demeanor shifting. This was no random college kid, this man demanded respect, and it sent ripples of fear through Claire's heart. "Don't let him find you," one of the men snarled at his companions. "Get the contact information. We need him." At that moment, the world around Claire and Dylan collapsed in on itself. The man with the scar played a game they didn't understand. The stakes sat high and dangerous, the tension almost palpable. "Now," Dylan said suddenly, rising from the booth. "We can't wait for it to escalate." But the moment he stood, the atmosphere erased all doubt. The room went silent, eyes drawn toward them like moths to a flame. "Run, Claire!" he shouted, panic erupting in his voice as the newcomer caught sight of them. The air ignited with chaos, people moving in conflicting directions. Claire's body screamed at her to bolt, but she hesitated, fear ripping through her. She had a choice to make: to flee into the unknown or stand and fight for Jason. As she looked into Dylan's eyes, she saw the desperation mirrored back. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, every option dangerous. And just as she opened her mouth to decide, the gunshot rang out, shattering the fragile atmosphere and signaling a tipping point that would change everything. What had they unleashed? Claire's breath quickened, heart pounding like a war drum against the chaos. Would they escape this nightmare, or was this just the beginning of a perilous game? The gunshot echoed like thunder, a pulse of sheer terror that sliced through the noise of the cafe. Glasses rattled on tables, and the air thickened with an electric panic. Claire's heart raced, a drumbeat of fear echoing in her ears as she locked eyes with Dylan. Time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat a haunting reminder of the chaos surrounding them. "Run!" Dylan's voice rang out again, snapping her back to reality. He grabbed her hand, urgency fueling his grip. The world around them molded into a blur of frantic faces, panic-stricken whispers, and the acrid smell of fear. Claire barely registered the frantic movements of other patrons, some cowering below tables, others rushing toward the exits. Adrenaline surged through her veins, and she let instinct take over. They bolted toward the back of the cafe, dodging a table that had been upturned in a frenzy. They raced toward the emergency exit, but something gripped Claire. In that moment of terror, she turned around, her gaze fixated on the man with the scar, who stood frozen, a mix of surprise and fury etched across his face. "Claire!" Dylan shouted, yanking her, urging her forward. But her feet felt glued, as if invisible chains held her in place. "We have to go. Now." In that split second, she made a decision. "No. I need to know what is happening." She pulled free from his grasp, her mind swirling with thoughts of Jason, the twists and turns of this convoluted nightmare. Before she could think further, a second gunshot rang out. This time, it was followed by a low shout. "Get down!" The barista dove behind the counter, her cries mingling with the panicked prayers of a customer. Dylan's face fell, he understood her hesitation but didn't know how to navigate it. "Claire, please." He could hardly contain his fear, his voice trembling as he pleaded with her. Just then, the newcomer, still standing, still demanding attention, pushed through the panicked crowd toward where the scarred man stood. The tension reverted from chaos to a knife-sharp stillness, every eye drawn to the mounting confrontation. "Jason's not here, but I want to let you take the others," the new man declared, his voice steady despite the turmoil. His body radiated an aura that screamed danger, and Claire recognized the defiance in his posture. He was ready to fight. Before she could process it all, the two men locked gazes, a tumult of intent hanging in the air. Time slipped away from her again, each second stretching painfully as she weighed the outcome of a battle that hadn't even begun. "Dylan!" she called, but he was already stepping back, urging her again. This time, the urgency in his expression was mingled with dread. "We're running out of time." Suddenly, as if the world lost its grip, the newcomer lunged forward. Desperation surged through Claire, electrifying her limbs. She couldn't just run. Not while others were still in danger. "Let us go." Dylan grabbed her arm firmly, pulling her deeper toward the exit. She broke free for a split second, fixated on the unseen forces at play, caught in a storm of decisions that could lead to disaster. The men exchanged words, low and threatening, and Claire felt the air crackle with tension. What were they hiding? What truth was waiting to unfold? Now. Dylan insisted, exasperation flashing across his face. There was a moment's hesitation as Claire glanced at the chaos behind them, the uncertain fate of the crowd, and the confrontation brewing that would define the course of their lives. Each choice bore weight, and she felt the sting of tears threatening to spill. "Let us go!" she screamed, turning toward Dylan, and bolting for the emergency exit. Fear and fury mingled, propelling her forward as she pushed through the door, the cool night air hitting her like a wave, but as they hurried into the darkness, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was far from over. The clash inside the cafe echoed in her mind, threats had been made, and shadows had been stirred. They were tangled in a game far beyond their understanding. As they sprinted into the night, a chilling thought gripped her heart. How long could they run before the past caught up with them, and the truth behind Jason's whereabouts shattered their fragile escape? With every step, she felt it a dark web enfolding them, an ominous promise that danger was only beginning to unfold. The alley stretched out behind them, slick and treacherous, drenched with rain. Claire and Dylan raced into the shadows, hearts pounding, senses sharp. Each breath felt cold, filling her lungs with anxiety. How long could they possibly keep running? The chaos from the cafe still rang in her ears. "Where do we go now?" Claire gasped, stealing glances back, only half hoping the darkness wouldn't swallow them entirely. Dylan pulled her down another narrow path, urgency etched in his features. "We need to find a place to hide and regroup. We can't let them catch up." The panic ahead of them crashed like waves, washing away everything familiar. Claire wrestled with the gravity of their situation. The world felt jagged and chaotic, as if it could shift at any moment. "What if Jason don't say that?" Dylan shot back, his voice fierce. "He's our friend, Claire. We'll figure this out together. Just stay with me." Stay with him. The weight of those words flickered in her mind, uncertain but grounding. They pressed forward, weaving through alleyways scattered with debris, old newspapers fluttering like ghostly reminders of a normal life fading away. Claire stumbled, breath hitching as the reality of Jason's absence weighed heavily. "Dylan, you said they were targeting us. What do they want?" "I'm not sure," he replied, lips pressed into a thin line. "But if they've got our names, if they know we're connected to him, we need to be ready. That's why we have to expose what's happening, show everyone out there before it's too late." A flash of anxiety gripped her. Expose who? What if we end up like the guy at the diner? Dylan paused, his gaze unwavering. "Then we fight back. We're not alone in this, we can't think like just two scared kids anymore." Huddled in silence, they pondered their next move. But the stillness crumbled under the drumming of heavy footsteps echoing in the distance. Claire's heart seized. Had they found them already? She could hear their laughter, a predatory sound rippling through the night. "Quick! We need a place." Dylan hissed, his pulse pounding through Claire's grip as they darted into a cramped storage shed nearby. It smelled of rust and mildew, darkness wrapping around them like a heavy blanket. They pressed back against the wall, the thudding of footsteps growing closer, echoing like drums of war. "I can't believe this is happening," Claire's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with fear. "Me neither. But we're not done yet. We need to think. If they're looking for Jason, we need to find him first." "But how?" Claire's thoughts raced. The people they faced were powerful, unpredictable, and if they caught Jason, footsteps halted just outside, shadows looming outside the shed. Claire and Dylan held their breath, hearts sinking as anxiety layered the atmosphere. Just wait, they'll pass. We can slip out the other side, Dylan assured quietly, his tone laced with determination. As if the universe had conspired against them, one of the men's voices, harsh and grating, slashed through the heavy silence. He can't have gone far. Check everywhere. He's hiding. Claire's heart sank, dread spilling over. They were hunting Jason like prey, and with every moment lost, danger wrapped around them tighter. Where could I even find him? Claire gasped, urgency overriding her fear. Dylan paused, suddenly pensive. The old warehouse by the docks. That's where they used to meet up for trades. If Jason's in trouble, that's as good a place as any to start. As they listened on, the men continued to search, frustration hitting a palpable pitch. The soft scraping of gear echoed, signs of a search operation intensifying outside. Claire pressed closer to Dylan, feeling the tightness in her chest. Now or never, Dylan whispered, challenging the air around them with fierce determination. Without waiting any longer, they crept toward the back of the shed, hearts drumming with anticipation. The moment they stepped outside, the rain had lessened, becoming a gentle patter against the concrete. Claire's mind raced, looking for signs of danger as they slipped into the night once more, a single mission in their minds, save Jason. The warehouse loomed ahead, a huge structure swallowed by shadows. They approached cautiously, hands tightening into fists, prepared for whatever awaited them inside. We stick together, Claire asserted, her voice quivering with determination. The resolve in her gut was undeniable. She would stand strong for Jason. Crowding around the entrance, they pulled the door open just wide enough to slip through unseen. Darkness met them like an old friend, thick and heavy, but they pressed in. Shadows danced across the walls, flitting, just out of reach. What if Jason's already here? Claire muttered, anxiety creeping back. We'll find him, Dylan assured. We have to. Inside, faint voices echoed, intermixed with an assortment of muffled thuds and shuffles. Claire's heart raced faster, adrenaline flooding every nerve as they advanced deeper into the belly of the beast. The deeper they went, the more tangible the danger felt. They turned a corner quietly, peering into a wide room illuminated by sparse flickering lights. Just as they poked their heads around, Claire froze. There he was. Jason, bound to a chair, his face bruised but eyes blazing with fight. Claire! He shouted, recognition mixing with urgency. Get out of here. Her heart sank. We're not going without you. Don't. He warned, frantically shaking his head. You both have to run. But before they could react, the door slammed open, flooding the room with light. Look who we found. The tall man with the scar stood at the entrance, flanked by the others, tension flaring into chaos. Surprise. He sneered. You chose the wrong side, sweetheart. A surge of defiance rose in Claire. You can't keep us from him. Maybe so, the man retorted, stepping closer. But you've walked into something you'll never walk out of. Claire's fingers curled into fists, determination igniting as she prepared to fight for their lives. We'll see about that, she shot back defiantly. In a heartbeat, the room exploded. With a desperate roar, Dylan lunged for the nearest man, fists flying, while Claire pulled her phone from her pocket, desperate to call for help, praying Jason would forgive her for this reckless move. Would they break free from their captors, or would this be the moment their hope fractured beneath the weight of darkness? As chaos erupted around them, the night held its breath, pregnant with promise and peril. In this chaotic dance of fate, one question lingered in the air: could they emerge victorious, or would they become mere shadows lost within the unsolicited storm? Now, more than ever, it felt like an all-or-nothing fight, with life or death hanging in the balance. Every moment mattered. They had to win, not just for Jason, but for each other. This was it. This was the moment they had to prove they would fight back against the shadows that threatened to consume them. With passion fueling their fire, they stepped into the unknown, daring fate to answer them back. Then, silence. Claire locked eyes with Dylan, their moment of connection soaring above the din. They would fight back. They wouldn't be shadows in someone else's story. They would write their own. So they stood, ready. And as the storm began to break, they felt the electricity in the air, tinged with a flicker of hope as they prepared for the battle ahead. But the storm had just begun. Now, take action. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the story going. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this explosive conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support shapes our story.